Please welcome our guest, Leslie Odom Jr., student journalist. Good to see you again.
Student journalist.
Yeah. Just so you know, Indiana's oldest college newspaper is the DePauw. The radio station, WGRE, where I was once station manager, and we didn't close it down amazingly during that period, is the oldest non-commercial educational 10-watt station in the country. It's now like 1,000 watts. And the TV station is D3 TV, so they're all here.
Okay.
And Leslie Odom Jr. is our Ubben Lecturer, as you know, and as I told Mr. Odom, there is so much excitement, both on and off campus, for his visit. So
Well, I'm
I open
glad.
the floor to you, to the students.
I'll go first.
Yeah.
So we have a large music school here, and part of their initiative is becoming 21st century musicians. And I was just wondering, as a musician yourself, how do those 21st century musicians stay relevant?
How do 21st century musicians,
Classical musicians.
classical
Yeah.
And
musicians?
would you like a little
Yes.
background, because the 21st Century
Yes.
Musician Program is basically designed to help young musicians, forge a career. I mean, obviously, as you know, it's very, very difficult to break in, especially in the classical field, to get a symphonic job or something. So to give them the skills to not only be musicians, but to market themselves and understand the world they're entering, the YouTube culture.
Well, I know that every sort of specialization is its own ghetto. Like and it has its own rules and its own sort of thing. My best friend, who I went to college with, his brother is a classical. He plays viola classically, and he has a master's degree, and he tried the symphony route for years, and he just moved to New York and started playing in Broadway shows, in the pits of Broadway shows, which has been easier for him to break into, because I know that, it's hard in the classical arts. It's hard for classical opera singers, for classical dancers. I think that probably, from my experience, I think that it's probably just about finding in those arts what makes them necessary. It's about finding what makes them. Every generation, you have to make those works vital. You have to make them. That's our job. It's our job to make Shakespeare matter. Still, it's our it's our job to make Bach matter and Beethoven matter. How are you going to do it? How are you going to, is it about showing young people the delineation, about how this led to this. I've taken the same challenge on with jazz music, which is also, in a way, a classical art form, classical American art form. And I love it, so it doesn't feel like drudgery or anything, but it's my job to make a song like Autumn Leaves matter to people who may have never cared about it before, and to make the music of Jerome Kern and Richard Rodgers and this dusty music, to wipe it off and say something new with it, say something fresh with it. So it's the challenge, but it's the challenge, Yeah.
So I read that when you went in for informal reading for Hamilton, you went in dressed for Aaron Burr and you knew your lines and the songs. Is that true?
It's true.
Why were you so adamant on getting Aaron Burr in Hamilton?
Well, I had seen a reading of the show. At Vassar, which they have a new works festival there called the Powerhouse Festival, I think. But it's where they'll take a new piece of work up there and they'll rehearse a bunch of actors and get up in very informal setting and do the new work. The whole process is about 3 or 4 weeks, maybe. And so I saw Hamilton at that stage. I saw it 3 summers ago. my wife was up there doing another one of those shows, and so I saw Hamilton while I was up there, and it was just the most astonishing piece of work I'd ever seen. I mean, not quite in the same way as the classical arts, but musical theater too is an art form that I care about, that I like, that is always in need of invigoration, is always in need of a new voice, something that makes that art form now, something that makes it vital and necessary now. And Hamilton was doing that. That show was doing that. That show, you can hear it, and I felt the same way about it that you feel. You know, when I first heard it, I fell in love with it, and it just felt like from the opening chords, from the opening lines of that show, it was like, this is the revolution. This is the future of musical theater. And so that's why, because you don't often get an opportunity to be a part of introducing something like that to the world. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I mean, there's going to be many, many actors, hundreds of actors, maybe thousands of actors that get to do that part. None of us could possibly. Lynn is Superman, but Lynn can't be in Chicago and London and San Francisco at the same time, and Broadway at the same time. And so there's going to be hundreds, thousands of Hamiltons and Burrs, but there will only be one cast that got to do it originally, that got to start it. And so I had to be a part of that.
And Aaron Burr specifically, because I know he's not, if you first read it, Hamilton, Aaron Burr might not be like one of the main characters, but you made it so incredible.
Thanks.
So, like, why Aaron Burr, and how did you go to the process of really making one of maybe, not a minor character, because Aaron Burr is important, but maybe not like Hamilton, but you included Aaron Burr. How did you do that?
Well, it was the role I was asked to play. So Hamilton was taken. Lynn was pretty much going to do that. And I was willing to, when you come across something like that, I was willing to sweep the floors. I didn't care what part I was going to play. I really didn't. But I was invited to play Burr, and I felt very lucky. And so because of that, because I had seen it and I knew I knew what the responsibility of that was, I took it very seriously. I knew you're dealing with somebody's life's work. It took Lynn 6 years to write that show. And so you're dealing with somebody who's been daydreaming about something and has poured in their heart and soul into something for 6 years. And so, yeah, I took it seriously. Yeah, I came in dressed, and I came in knowing my material, because that's how you show someone how you feel about their work. It's not lip service. It's not, I love this so much, and I really want to do it. No, I'm going to show you how bad I want to do it, because I spent 6 hours yesterday working on it. I'm bringing in my sweat equity, That's how you show someone. And and as far as the role, I only saw Act 1 when I went to Vassar, and every single song was a revelation, but certain songs stopped me in my tracks. The Story of Tonight stopped me in my tracks. Satisfied, Wait for It. So Wait for It was like, it's just, I wasn't watching it thinking I was going to play Aaron Burr, but it was just like, wow, whoever gets to sing that song 8 shows a week is going to be a lucky, lucky actor, because it's just such a special tune. But then when I really got knocked on my butt was with Dear Theodosia, because then it was, okay, wait, so that same person gets to sing that song and that song? It was just such an embarrassment of riches. It was like, again, if you get to sing one of those songs in a show, like, good on you. Like, that's fantastic. It's a dream. But yeah, it was that the good songs just never stopped coming. And then once we started working on Act 2, Then I got Rumor It Happens, and I got The World Was Wide Enough, and, it was just such a tremendous score.
What message do you think that you could provide to college students, particularly coming out of small education, going into the world, and it's kind of a fickle job atmosphere out there right now, particularly for performing arts, but what kind of message do you think you could provide?
I would say you have to have two things going at once. And what I mean by that is there's nothing wrong with trying to get in the system. There's nothing wrong with trying to jump on somebody else's thing. That's applying for jobs, that's, networking, and, trying to get involved in something else that somebody has going. That's yes, right? But all of us really, this day and age, you have to have something going along parallel to that that's your own thing. You have to have a long-range goal and that thing should bring you joy. That thing should involve your passion, because that's where, if it ever does hit for you, it's going to come from passion. It's going to come from because you love it so much. But yeah, what I would say is that don't pour all of your good stuff into someone else's thing. Does that make sense? Or into looking for someone else's thing, because I know people just can get so depleted. They can get so depleted trying to jump on somebody else's moving train, If you can get on somebody else's train, that's great. And you can find your way there, that's wonderful. But there are, especially for performers and people who are sort of freelance, there's lots of jobs, not just performers, but there's lots of jobs that are, that the contracts are short, that you're not gonna necessarily go into a job and have it for 30 years. You're gonna, you're an independent contractor. You're gonna be somebody that has many, many little jobs. And so if that's the case, technology has made it so that, there's very little that you have to wait for. There's very little that you have to get permission to do. Very little anymore. You can create anything you want, and it's your responsibility. It's our responsibility to do that. People are expecting us to do that. They're expecting us to have our own thing. If we don't get that job right away, if we don't get those opportunities right away, we are expected to start our own thing. That counts on your resume now. What you started on your own and how well it did.
Is it also powerful to say no sometimes to jobs? I mean, to kind of have a personal code and say...
Are you kidding? Of course. Of course. What I read about your generation, though, is that you guys don't have a problem with that. That's what I hear about you guys. People are trying to understand how to, bosses are trying to, understand how to, deal with you guys because your parenting was different. And so... and so your generation doesn't respond to the same kind of stuff, Like if somebody's treating you poorly, you're much less likely to put up with that than 2 generations ago. You're much more likely to go, who needs it? And be out, you know what I mean? So it's an interesting thing. But yes, of course, your no is powerful. Your no has currency. And yes, that's the ideal. That's the ideal, to have people coming to you and to have choices, to have people coming to you. And this person wants you to do this, and this person wants you to do that. And no, I'm not going to do these. I'm going to go down and do this. Of course, choices is wonderful. So no is important, yes. And a code, yeah. Integrity is everything. You want to be able to look at yourself in the mirror. You don't want to sell yourself out. No way.
So how
exactly did you go around approaching the character of Aaron Burr? Because he's a good guy, but he's a bad guy. He's incredibly complex. And so what would you say were his main motivations when looking at the musical? He wanted to be in the room where it happens, and he was kind of angry with Hamilton at some point. So would you say, like, is it because Hamilton took all his friends? Or when you were looking at this, what were you seeing as his motivations?
Well, I thought it was a person who's, this can happen to anybody. And I should also say, our story is historical fiction. Our story is based on truth and true events and stuff, but Lynn is an artist and a writer, and so Lynn Lynn has a narrative. Lynn told a story. You read other shows, especially throughout history, that paint Burr much worse than Lynn wrote him, or I'm sure the converse is available too. So I'll say that, so that just that our show, history is up for debate. There are the facts, wars, death tolls, elections. There are facts, but then when you're talking about motivations, why somebody did something or not, or that's up for debate. But in our show, in terms of our show, I love the simplicity that Lynn draws it with. It's basically, if you haven't experienced it, you will. You're looking at, Burr deals with someone who has a different moral code and has a different way of doing things and is succeeding. So every now and again, sort of everything you're taught falls away. Everything you were taught, sort of the way it all makes sense, the way it's supposed to go. Somebody comes along and they don't do it that way and it's working for them. And it's like, what? That's not the way it's supposed to go. You're supposed to do this. You go to college and you're in journalism class, and then you get and then here comes this person who started she's got a Twitter account and she got the job. What's happening? You know what I mean? That's what he's going through. And then it doesn't just happen once, it happens twice, it happens 3 times, 4 times. So that's what our show is about. Our show is about the mounting frustration of that. And it's about, I also think, ultimately, it's a tragedy because, the girl that gets the job over you because the Twitter account shouldn't die in a duel at Weehawken. You know what I mean? Ultimately, it's a tragedy because these two guys who were friends and brilliant men, didn't see a way around, couldn't find a way around, trying to murder each other. That's how real it was then. That's how real honor was then. So that's really sad, but that's what makes it, that's also what makes it operatic. And, the drama is so heightened. Lynn zeroed in on that drama, because sometimes history can just be boiled down to a footnote. And Aaron Burr was the vice president, and he shot Alexander Hamilton in a duel. And then you turn to the next page, it's wait, what? They did, let's focus on that a little bit. How did that happen? And that's what Ron Chernow did with the book first. That's what Ron Chernow wrote a 900-page. That's actually not about, it's actually about Alexander Hamilton, but it ends like that. That's how it ends. That's how his life ended. That's a long answer. But I think that, that's what our show was about. It was watching somebody who has a different philosophy, who's succeeding in a way that may have never occurred to you. Sometimes people succeed in a way that it's just like, why didn't I think of that? Or why was I too afraid I didn't have the courage to do that. And then I think it's a tragedy because I think it's about, ego and rigidity.
I have time for 2 quick questions.
Hi, thank you for coming to DePauw, first
Of
of all.
course.
From what I understand, when you were 17, you starred in Bryn, which is your first, I guess, major Broadway show. What was that like being upheld to such high expectations at such a young age?
Well, starred in is a little bit of hyperbole because I was in the ensemble, but as far as I was concerned, I was starring in it. I remember so what was that like? There were 2 parts of it because I went basically from the church basement to Broadway. I went from community theater to Broadway. When I went to that audition, I'll tell the story tonight. Are you guys coming tonight? Yeah. So I don't want to bore you with stories. I'm going to tell twice. But I never intended to get the job. Getting the job was, I just went to an audition for the audition experience, and then throughout the process, I was like, wait, what? I'm good. You what? So I ended up on Broadway. But so there was a certain amount of the not a certain amount. I didn't understand what it meant to be a professional. I didn't understand the culture. So, it hurt me deeply that we didn't all hang out after the show every night, that we weren't going bowling and I didn't understand, because you guys know how it is, but where I'd come from, it was but these people had families and they lived all in different parts of the city. This was a job that people came in and they punched in and, hey, how you doing? And we're going to go out on stage and make out, and then we're going to go home. And you know what I mean? It was very, so that was hard for me to deal with. It was just jarring. And then also, I remember, there was this rent sort of affectation that you had to have. There was this brooding sort of really affectation that you had, this posturing that you had to have in the show that didn't compute to me as a 17-year-old who was on Broadway for the first time. So everybody's like, we're not gonna pay. And I'm like, we're not gonna pay. Right? So the stage manager is giving me notes he gave me notes the entire time that I was there. I never understood it. He wanted me to stop smiling. He was like, you have to stop smiling, and he wasn't really good at explaining why, but suffice it to say, it was also very challenging to just the skip, that some of you will experience once you get out of school. You get out of school and the safety net is gone and somebody has expectations for you and they expect them to be met and so bad, so sad. You know what I mean? So there was just that little hiccup, but it's all good. I learned and it was great. And then it was also really good. It was also really good going to college after that because yeah, I got a little taste of what the professional world was like, and so I knew what I was preparing for in college. It was always nice to, I knew what kind of stamina was going to be required, what tools I needed. So it was great.
Anybody have a mini question because we're about out of time?
Oh, yeah, it's sort of mini. So I just wanted to say thank you for coming, first of all, and then I wanted to ask, because I think you will probably be a role model for some kids somewhere, so I was wondering if there's anyone that you looked up to when you were growing up in the music field, or maybe not in the music field, that you just feel inspired you to.
Oh,
That's a really
sure.
tough question.
No, it's not tough at all. No, there were so many, and they changed over the years. I think that's very important. I hope all you guys have that too. I hope you have mentors and heroes and people that you look up to, because that's important. That's your inspiration. And here's what I will say. Here's the only thing what I want for you is to make sure that you're aiming high enough with the mentor. with the hero. It's like, I don't want you to choose, like, you know, I don't want you to only choose Kardashians. You know what I mean? I'm sure you like the show and you watch the show, but yeah, I want you to make sure that you are, in whatever your chosen profession is or whatever your interests are, aim high. Aim high. Aim for the legends. That's what I'm saying. You know what I mean? Aim for the people who did it like the best. Who did it the best? Because yeah, you'll do pretty well if you aim for the best. You know, with Hamilton, I wanted to. I knew that I had the chance to. I knew that the material was historic. This was an historic show, and so I wanted the performance to be that. I wanted it to be something that could live up to. I don't know if I did it, but what I was going for was Ben Vereen and Pippin. What I was going for was for that original cast and Rent. That, you know, Topol and Fiddler on the Roof. I mean, something iconic, you know, not something for today, something for all time. Why not? If you might not hit it, you might not hit the mark, but that's what we're going for. Do something for all time.
Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you,
so
guys.
Welcome to DePauw.
My pleasure.
Thank you, guys.